In this episode of the Data Defenders Forum, Salon and I got a chance to speak to Joseba Laka, who's the Digital Director at Technalia Research and Innovation, a research center in the north of Spain. We discussed a new European Union legislation called the AI Act, which aims to regulate the use of artificial intelligence in various domains. The Act takes a risk-based approach, categorizing AI applications based on risk and imposing regulations accordingly. We spoke about the challenges and opportunities that the AI Act presents for different businesses in terms of transparency and trustworthiness of AI models. We also covered the fact that this will have an potential impact on American companies when it comes to improving AI solutions. Let's take a look at the episode and see what we uncovered in the conversation. Welcome to the Data Defenders Forum. Today we are joined by someone who's quite near where I am, geographically speaking. His name is Joseba. Joseba, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to just give a quick introduction about yourself, your background, and the things that you're working on nowadays, that'd be great for our audience to get to know you a little bit better.
Of course. I'm a software engineer. I'm working at a research institute, applied research it's called Technalia in Spain. And we are doing many different things, from industrial R&D, from health, mobility, pharmacy, all kind of domains. And one of these domains is obviously artificial intelligence. So I'm the director of the digital units at Technalia, and I'm involved very heavily on artificial intelligence related topics.
Fantastic. That being said, the topic of our discussion today is about the new legislation coming out in the European Union, the AI Act. For people that might not know anything about this, can you just give us an intro to what it is, what it's trying to tackle?
Yeah, I think I think it's fair to say that we live in the Wild West in terms of artificial intelligence. There are many standards for digital systems out there. There are quite a few laws across the world about many different topics. In Europe, especially, we have a few laws that have been created in the last few years about digital markets, about privacy, the very well-known GDPR, and so on. Before COVID-19, there was a kind of a discussion in Europe among industries, politicians, research actors like ourselves, that there was a need to have something about a framework more than a regulation on artificial intelligence. So the debate started long before the COVID-19 pandemics, and I think it was 2021 that the first piece of document was created with the influence of many different stakeholders across Europe. And from 2021 till today, what there has been is a very long and difficult negotiation between or among different actors, mainly the parliament, the council, the different industrial associations, the different R&D actors about the law that is going to be signed very quickly soon. So maybe by the time you see this podcast, it's already in place, hopefully. And actually, it's a law that is not regulating systems or technology. Yeah, all the approach is about risk. So it's a risk-based approach where the law, what pretends is to be a future-proof law. So it's even if we have new artificial intelligence technologies coming and becoming real, the idea is that since this is going to regulate the use cases more than the technologies itself, it will be future-proof, and it will be the basis for the development of artificial intelligence in the future in Europe.
Thank you. So what's very interesting, as you coined, it's not really a regulation, but more of a framework. Could you dive a little bit about this? What's this framework about? How is it built, and how it's working?
Yeah, actually, what is going to be signed now is a regulation, is a law. It's a law that will be applied automatically all across Europe. So it's not the kind of law, it's not a directive that later on each member state has to create a law, specific law to follow the directive. This is a regulation, which means that this is going to be a law, and it will follow the rule of law, so it will be applicable all across Europe. But it will be applied state by state. So it's not, laws in Europe are then member states are the ones that actually implement the law. But this is coming from a previous works about creating a framework of what is artificial intelligence, the very first thing. That is a very difficult, it's very difficult to create a regulation when you don't have a clear definition of what it is and what it's not. And then secondly, and this was, I think, it was a very key agreement, not to regulate the technology, but actually to regulate the applications of the technology. So the context, the use cases, where it is applied, where it shouldn't be applied. And in that way, I think there are many people that really love the regulation, people that are very negative about the regulation. I think it's a regulation that was needed. And I think that is actually a future-proof regulation, because what it states is contexts where you are not supposed to use artificial intelligence at all, contexts where artificial intelligence is considered to be high risk, and that means that there has to be a level of control, high level control on the models, even the data, everything. Then there will be another layer of limited risk, where let's say that then transparency will be required, and then there will be a number of applications of artificial intelligence where nothing will be required except of voluntary, transparency and things like this. But I think that this sets a very clear scenario or context, specifically for private companies, so that they know that if they invest heavily in artificial intelligence in the upcoming years, they will know that those applications, those investments will be future-proof.
So it's basically a four layers framework, right? I'm correct?
Exactly. We have unacceptable risks. So these are applications that violate the fundamental rights and values and so on. So this is a prohibition. Then they will have high risk, that these will be applications that have impact on health, on safety, anything that is applicable to safety, high risk. Fundamental right risks in the European Union. And also there's a few application sectors that they have been heavily discussed whether they were high risk or not, but finally they will be high risk. Then we will have the level where transparency is required, so some limited risk, so where there is a way to manipulate people, to create deceptions. So, for example, chatbots, deepfakes, then artificial intelligence generated content that needs to be labeled as artificial intelligence. So that's the one that is watching this podcast knows that is myself. I'm a human and I'm not AI generated. And then there will be a layer of minimal or no risk at all. So, for example, the application of artificial intelligence for spam filters in email, or for applications in video games and so on, they won't have a very specific regulation. And what it has been also a coincidence is that when all this regulation was being drafted and negotiated and fought among different actors, generative artificial intelligence made this huge boom with the OpenAI and so on. So this was added, I would say, a bit artificially, but right in time, because it was added another perspective, that is that foundational models, such as the big LLMs and other large models that we are using and we are developing right now, they can produce what is called general purpose artificial intelligence applications. And this general purpose AI, not to be linked with artificial general intelligence, that's another topic, AGI. But these general purpose artificial intelligence applications or systems, they could end up being high risk, they could end up being unacceptable, or they could simply have to comply with some transparency requirements. So it will be all a matter of the application context and not the technology itself.
Fascinating, yeah. And the approach is very smart because the technology is so complicated. Well, as you said, with large language model and generative AI, we are just getting started in understanding the potential and the applications. And so with coming with this high-level risk-centric framework, you ensure that it's pretty much future-proof, as you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation. So
hopefully,
yeah, right.
We'll
It's hopefully within our lifetime or a few generations.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us So there is this law that being that should be signed soon. That's centered around a framework. What businesses will be impacted by it?
Well, mainly all kind of businesses and also public authorities that are using in a way or another artificial intelligence in their use cases, contexts, scenarios, whatever in Europe. So in all member states, the AI Act will be mandatory, and this is very important not only for private companies, but also for the private companies that exist today, but also for the private companies that will exist in the future, startups today or startups in the near future, and public authorities and all the public, let's say, all the IT behind the public authorities. And there's a big challenge, huge challenge there. And I think that for the future, there was a question a week ago in a panel I was taking part. Somebody said, well, Europe is regulating. So Europe is going to lag behind in artificial intelligence as in many other topics. As somebody very smart said, yeah, actually the Europe's position in artificial intelligence is really weak. It's weak. And it's weak because we are in the Wild West, where there are no rules. The bigger you are, the bigger the chances you have to grab the business. And in Europe, we have a few large digital companies. So in fact, what the law and this act is going to let's say make possible in Europe is that for investors, now investors will know that if they invest in something and is AI driven, it will be future proof because the law is there, and the law is going to be there for many years, hopefully. So in fact, this law should be a booster for investment on artificial intelligence in Europe, because nowadays some investors they are a bit skeptic on I'm going to invest this so much in artificial intelligence today. Well, what happens tomorrow if a law comes or something changes? In Europe, the law is there. So from now on, there will be certainty for investors and not uncertainty. That is the let's say the context where we have been living up so far.
Okay. Now, in the other, as you mentioned, like we even struggle sometimes about the definition of what is and what isn't AI. In which cases might it be tough to comply with the the recommendations, the guidelines that are in this law that's coming out? In which cases might it be difficult to comply, and why?
Well, the definition of artificial intelligence in the AI Act is coming from the OECD. I'm not going to read it because it's a bit long, but that is a good definition. So, but of course, it's a high-level definition. So there might be some gray areas, in what is AI, what is not AI. But anyway, but it's quite good, the definition. Let's say the challenge is going to be for the high-risk scenarios, for the high-risk use cases. As for example, in Tecnalia, we work a lot on artificial intelligence on industrial machines, on vehicles, on health systems, in the energy sector. In all these sectors where safety is a must, in my background, I'm coming from telecoms. And in telecoms, I remember that, let's say, creating codes or creating systems was tough, was difficult, but was not such expensive as it is, for example, to include software in a plane, in a vehicle, in an industrial machine. Why? Because there are standards that are really harsh from a safety perspective. Now, what is going to happen is that if you are in one of these high-risk domains, the cost of all the evaluation conformity assessment of artificial intelligence is going to be quite high. And of course, that's an issue. That's a hurdle. That's that's a challenge for the return on investment on artificial intelligence in some of these domains. But it's a must. It's a must, because if you want artificial intelligence to really explode and really be something really important in Industry 4.0, in the new mobility, in the smart grid, in many other sectors that are really demanding artificial intelligence, you can't work with consumer-level artificial intelligence, so to say. You need some artificial intelligence-based models that are safety-proof. And we all know that when something has to be safety-proof, then the amount of mechanisms that you have to implement make things much more expensive. But if later there's an accident, for example, you need an AI that is not a black box. So you need AIs that can be explainable, trustworthy, and so on. So the real challenge is going to be there. For the unacceptable artificial intelligence, of course, this is going to be out of the law. So, I mean, you won't be able to do things that are quite common, for example, in China or in other geographies. And then for the ones that require transparency, it shouldn't be really a big deal, because transparency is something that we all demand from artificial intelligence in general. So it's going to be all about high risk, and in this, let's say, safety relevant domains, where safety is going to be number one. So nobody will be working on an AI driven machine tool system, for example, if that artificial intelligence has not passed all these conformity assessments so that it can be actually used in a machine tool system, for example.
So a lot of our listeners will, they are entrepreneurs, they are software engineers. Can you tell us a little more how can they comply? Or maybe we can kind of shuffle the question and speak a little bit about how regulators, and not regulator here is the countries enforcing the law, how will they assess the conformity of the products?
Yeah.
Are we there yet?
That's a very good question, because there are big questions, Mark, about that. There's going to be an AI office in Brussels, of course. But actually, the law that has a very, let's say, strong sanctions to whoever doesn't comply with the law. The law is going to be applied state by state. So I'm talking from Spain right now. In Spain, the government is setting up what is called the AI Supervision Agency, AESIA. And what we all expect is that AESIA, the agency, will be soon dealing with the companies that do conformity assessment of many other digital technologies, because there are tons of standards for conformity assessment. And they will start creating the protocols, the test books, the sandboxes required to go through these conformity assessment processes and have the seal saying that, okay, your model can be applied in a high-risk scenario. I'm not sure how it's going in other countries. I have heard, I'm reading, I'm getting information from colleagues in Germany, France, Italy, and so on. But as you know, the law, once it's signed, I think it's 6 months for that it will be applicable for everything that is unacceptable. Then it will be 12 months for the high risk, and I think 24 months for the limited risk. So it's going to go step by step. I mean, during these months, what we expect is a rush to create all these probably very vertical sandboxes for specific domains, so that you are going to be able to take your model there, even take your data, everything that surrounds and makes operative your artificial intelligence, demonstrate that it complies with all the requirements in high risk or limited risk, and then go to business.
So the country need to be prepared to do this at a national level. How convinced you are that they are going to be able to implement this in a quick way, right? Like artificial intelligence, and especially with the progress we've made in the last year or so, has been so impressive that, and how can you expect country as a national level to be able to develop this sophisticated sandbox? Do you think it's going to be something easy, or do you think that it's going to be challenging for?
Well, first of all, it's going to be business. This is going to be business for, there are many companies in Europe, worldwide, that are doing evaluation assessment for many testing and so on of, getting a certain label that gives you value in the market is also a business itself. So this is my opinion. I think that this is going to be a big business for these kind of companies. And I'm sure also from many comments I'm hearing from my colleagues working in these standardization committees, that it might be, there's a bit of a skepticism about the milestones, because some of my colleagues, they believe that it will be very difficult to change certain safety-related standards by the time that the AI Act should go really live. It's quite easier to say, okay, this is bad. You can do, massive biometric or social scoring and these kind of things. You can do that. Okay, that's easy. But to go through a process where you demonstrate that your model and your operative artificial intelligence could be embedded in an industrial domain, in a mobility domain, in a health domain, that's difficult. So what some people think is that there might be a delay on the application on these 12 months in high risk. Having said this, the milestones are still there. So it might very well happen that in 2 or 3 years, we are still 99% in that process.
Okay, so that's kind of the secret, is that countries might not, right? Like we might not be there. The laws, the regulations, the framework is here. The technical implementation is yet to be seen.
I mean, we know very well how difficult it is to get some IC or some DO or some ISO. It's quite difficult sometimes to demonstrate your digital product that really is safety aware and so on, all these kind of things. So we believe that it's going to be the biggest challenge. Now is going to have everything set and ready so that the day that they say, okay, now you have to go through this sandbox to get your certification, that everything will be ready. Let's see.
Regarding, with every challenge, there are also opportunities. That with the situation that we have right now, that AI is pretty much, currently very much still a black box. Do you think that there will be opportunities for businesses that will be able to help with transparency with AI models? And are you aware of any companies as of right now that you might be able to mention that are doing that?
What I'm able to say is that trustworthiness is something that a few months ago was seen as with very limited market value. I have a black box. It works very well. Fantastic. I can trust in this black box. But now the white box concept and the real trustworthiness is becoming a market asset. Something that companies start thinking, okay, it's not enough with having this black box AI, whatever is the architecture, I don't care. That actually works fine, and this makes these predictions or these prescriptions or whatever, or generates content, whatever. Now I need to audit. I need to have a full traceability. If something goes wrong, I need to demonstrate. Boom. And if I don't, then I won't get the label, and I won't be able to go to the market. So suddenly, trustworthiness is a topic that it has been like quite academic, quite like nice to have trustworthy AI. Now it's going to be one of the most market relevant issues. That one and others that so far have not been so relevant, like energy consumption, because energy consumption is also there in the law. The idea is that the models, I mean, we are all talking about billions and billions of parameters and these gigabits and so on. No, stop. I mean, also now models, they will have to be eco-efficient. Otherwise, you might have problems. So there are many topics that so far they have been kind of a nice to have, and now they are going to be, you must have it. And I can tell you that this is something now on the top of the head of many CEOs and CTOs in many large and medium-sized private companies.
We've been talking a fair amount about, companies here in the context of Europe, obviously this being the framework and legislation that's coming out of the EU. But if we're talking about, a lot of the big players in the AI ecosystem are very much focused in the US, based in the US. How likely is it that they will that they are to comply? If we look at other things that we mentioned previously about GDPR, we've seen other things around data protection in the United States. But when it comes to this with AI, what do you expect will be the reaction from American companies?
Hard to say. I wish I knew very well. But see what happened with GDPR. Actually, now is the worldwide standard for data privacy. I mean, you are not going to build something that, okay, this is the European flavor, this is the American flavor, this is the Chinese flavor. You have one flavor. And I think, and I hope that what I was mentioning before about trustworthiness, explainability, traceability, auditability, all these kind of things are going to be the the new value propositions of many artificial intelligence based systems. So if you are not able to demonstrate that, what's going to be your value proposition in domains like health, where a decision is so critical? So to say this is cancer, this is not cancer, or all these kind of applications that they seem to be like magic. A black box says no, sorry. You will have to actually demonstrate. So I think that I hope that many companies will see that there is a huge return on investment on going this way, the hard way. If you go the hard way, you have the globe, you have all the markets. If you don't go the hard way, you are out of the market in Europe. But there will be many companies building at the European, let's say, style, and those ones, they will have an advantage in the market. So I think the smart movement will be to say, okay, like GDPR, this is it, and we go for this kind of requirements, no matter if I'm selling in the US or I'm selling in France.
Fair. No, that's a fair point. If anybody, likes to do things differently, it's definitely in the United States when it comes to legislation coming from other countries.
By the way,
yes.
the US is huge on defense, and I have to say, because some people are really, they really get crazy when the AI Act doesn't apply to any defense AI applications or security. There are certain topics that a judge will have to authorize the police, for example, to use surveillance systems using remote biometric in real time. There will be a judge. But defense, another very critical, let's say, aspect where the US is in the leading edge, out of the law. So the European flavor will be the same one as in the US.
And, in terms of practical steps that, companies can take today in order to be better prepared, if you had to recommend a few concrete things, what would you say that, if you're a company that's working with AI, that's, creating creating technologies that are based on AI, there are some core things that they simply can't miss. What would those be?
I think it's to invest on the technologies, the available choices that provide some guarantees on, guarantees that you are not, that you are not following a path that is not under your control. There is always this thing, buy or build, buy or build. And many times you buy because it's cheaper, it's as a service, whatever. I think there's going to be a big shift now in the coming years, more build. Because companies, and we are feeling that already, companies, they feel that if they go the as a service way all the time, subscription model and so on, they are going to lose the core value of the artificial intelligence solution. But not only the core value, they are going to lose the control, the certainty that they will be valid once the law is in place. Because there are so many questions right now. We have the law. It's not we don't have the final text yet, by the way, but we must know 99%. But I think that from private companies' perspective, the ones that are demanding artificial intelligence-based solutions, there is a shift towards build the most of it, and the ones that are actually selling artificial intelligence-based value propositions. Or my suggestion would be try to build something that is going to be future-proof 5, 6, 7 years. So you have to think very well, what is your market domain? If you are going to be in the high-risk market context, or if you might be there. If you are going to be there, you have to go for it. And the better is like cybersecurity. Many years ago, cybersecurity was like the last thing. Okay, you build a system. Oh, now firewalls and so on. No. Security by design. And now everybody's working on security by design. You don't design and then add security. Here is going to be the same. You have to comply by design. So it's not just a matter of I take whatever things out there, I put it, and fantastic. Hey, sorry, it's not going to comply. So you will have to rebuild your complete technical stack. So choose a good stack and try to build as much as you can and try to control as much as you can, at least for the coming years. Now, you are not going in high risk. Then I think that you can rely many as service value propositions and you can work on that because You know that all these ones, the big players that they are selling, I'm not going to say which kind of platforms and so on, but transparency is something that it will be applicable, and it shouldn't be very difficult for these as a service providers to provide you with this transparency as a service.
Yeah, well, and I think the compliance by design and the fact that the regulator, we push vendors and company consuming this AI to be able to remove this black box aspect is gonna help the industry to grow and to define standard, and the benefit, right? It's gonna be beneficial. It's not. I think the fact that today generative AI and the model we are building are black box is definitely an issue, because we don't really understand them, and as you mentioned, in critical or life-threatening situations, this is absolutely unacceptable. So
totally.
Before we wrap this episode, we are just at the beginning of this, as you said. It hasn't been signed yet, but based on your experience, in the field, like what do you believe we can expect from this European AI Act in the future? Like, how do you believe it may evolve?
That's a very good question, because it has taken several years to have this law written and agreed. We all hope that it will last many, many years. But actually, there are on the table right now. There are some issues already with the regulation. For example, in the health domain, we have the medical device regulation, the MDR. The MDR states that all software is also a medical device. So now all artificial intelligence is going to be a medical device. And there are aspects on MDR, for example, that, let's say, limit a lot the kind of artificial intelligence you can use. Because the artificial intelligence used, it has to be absolutely, let's say, trust is not the issue. It's certain. I mean, you can't apply certain techniques that are out there in the market, about learning, continuous learning on artificial intelligence models and so on. There are certain techniques that are simply not allowed in the MDR. So now we are going to have the AI Act coexisting with other regulations that were already in place, that they might need to evolution to be like a puzzle that everything fits together. So from the regulationary perspective, there are going to be like shakedowns after the regulation is in place. And we're a bit, I would say, sometimes pessimistic, sometimes optimistic about how these shakedowns will really work out and how the puzzle really, everything will fit together. But what we really expect is that the regulation will be in place and will be stable for many years to come, because we believe that it has been built really future-proof. But of course, AGI could arrive, the artificial general intelligence, and we might have a massive new revolution with that. Although, if you ask AI people about when AGI will come, some say tomorrow, some say never. So who knows? But what we really expect is that now investment in artificial intelligence in Europe will have kind of a friendly law, challenging law. I mean, challenging, but not unfriendly, because the law is going to set up the let's say the business scenario for many years. So now to make an investment, we'll have this assurance that the law is going to protect whoever really complies with the law, and is not going to permit anybody that is not complying with the law to operate in Europe. So it's not going to be easy. Next years are going to be a lot about issues, challenges, problems, ambiguities. In one member state, they are saying this. In the other, they have done a different interpretation of you need to harmonize everything. So it's going to be tough. Next years will be tough. And for everybody like us working on R&D and artificial intelligence, that we're working on medium, long-term technologies and projects and very exploratory things, we are already suffering some of these issues of the next coming years. Because, for example, we have many projects that are about biometric biometry and artificial intelligence mixed, so that we can predict how somebody's driving a car, is working with a machine, or is doing whatever. And that's recognizing emotions. That's forbidden in the law. Unless. So, and you will have this act, you will have others. So it's going to be fun. Really, really fun. I tell you.
Certainly not going to be boring. That's for sure.
No.
Definitely not. Well, Joseba, thank you very much for joining us today. I think there's so much that we're taking from this conversation regarding how we got to this point, the approach that's being taken, the fact of just the very definitions around these things about, what is AI and what isn't, and the state-by-state approach of national regulations that may be in place in order to help organizations that are on the ground there, practical things that need to be kept in mind, and that, once again, this is a challenge, but there are also a lot of opportunities to be explored here.
That's good.
So thank you so much for your time today. We look forward to collaborating with you in the future.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. And for anybody that is listening to the podcast, stay tuned, because things are moving very quickly. And I'm sure that there will be news about the application of the AI Act in the coming years, I'm sure.
Yeah. We'll have plenty of reasons to have you back on for another podcast. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
Twitter, LinkedIn, emails. I mean, it's quite easy to find me. So if you look in social networks, it's quite easy. Yeah, should be.
Okay, perfect. Great. Well, thank you very much. All right, take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.